forward to this week, Unit 4, because we're talking about the generations. I love this discussion because we are blessed at this particular time in history to live when in church and in our women's ministry, we should have members, we should have individuals who are a part of 4 or 5 different generations. And so we need to learn about each generation. What are the typical characteristics of each generation? What are the needs of each generation? And then how can we minister to the needs of those generations? I pray that you find in your own church, as well as in your women's ministry, that you have a cross-section of generations. That's such a healthy way to live and to grow. Sometimes it's fun to be with people who are just like me or just like you, of a similar age and stage of life. But you know, to really grow, we need to have people who've gone before us, who can mentor us, who can teach us by example, but who can also share with us what God has taught them as they have grown in the Lord. And then as Christians who we pray are growing in the Lord ourselves, we need to have younger Christians around us, women that we can mentor, women that we can just encourage, that we can share with, that we can really pour life into. And so really one of the most effective ways for us to mentor each other is to be a part of churches and ministries who really do have representatives of all the generations. So maybe you know about the generations, maybe you've read about them, and I pray that you're aware of the uniquenesses. But this week, that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be looking at the primary characteristics of each of the generational groups, and then to see how that impacts our church and our women's ministry. You know, it's always challenging to live as Christians in a crazy world, but certainly now more than ever before. And one of the reasons it is challenging is many times we see the future generations, the younger generations, as people who have different expectations and people who have different experiences. And sometimes that's overwhelming and intimidating. But I pray that as you learn about each generation, it will help you to see how to love each other more effectively and how to serve each other more effectively. And I pray it'll also help you figure out why you think the way you do and why you act sometimes the way you do. You might find yourself fairly typical of someone born in the particular generation. And so I pray you enjoy this discussion this week about the generations, and then you'll be focusing on how God would have you to reach each of these groups. You know, we're at an important time in women's ministry. We're at a real important time as some of us who helped really get women's ministry started 20 or 30 years ago. We're ready to pass that baton of leadership on to the younger generation, but we must do so knowing that women's ministry is going to look a little different today and in the future than it did for us. So I pray for you and I challenge you as you think about your church and your women's ministry today to look to the future and to make sure you're reaching and involving all generations. God bless.